Listen closely, because this tale is not just told. It is whispered from the dark corners of a place that should never have existed. The story begins with Evan Holt, a quiet young cook who took a night shift job at a small, lonely restaurant tucked between two empty buildings. The restaurant never had customers during the day. Only at night did its lights flicker awake, dim, trembling, and always too cold. On Evan's first shift, the manager, a pale woman named Miss Calder, said only one rule mattered: never open the freezer after midnight. She said it without blinking, without breathing, it seemed. Evan laughed at first, thinking it was some old workplace superstition, but she didn't laugh with him. Her eyes drifted, slowly, painfully, toward the back of the kitchen where a heavy steel door sat frozen shut, and in that moment, Evan felt something watching him from behind it. The night dragged on. Pots rattled on their own. The overhead lights flickered in patterns that almost looked like Morse code, and every time Evan passed the freezer door, he heard a soft, wet tapping, as if fingertips, or knuckles, or something boneless were drumming from the inside. As the clock crept toward midnight, that tapping grew sharper, faster, angrier. The air chilled until Evan could see his breath. The restaurant felt alive, as if the walls themselves were exhaling slowly around him. Then the tapping stopped. Silence, dense and suffocating, fell across the kitchen. But in that silence, Evan heard another sound, a voice, soft, crooked, whispering his name from the other side of the freezer door. Evan, it's so dark. His blood thickened in his veins. Evan staggered back. Who's there? The voice scratched again. I'm so cold. Open the door, please. He shouldn't have recognized the voice, but he did. It was the voice of his twin sister, Lily, dead for 7 years. His heart hammered. His hands shook. His breath trembled as he stared at the steel door, shaking gently under something pressing from the inside. Evan, let me out. It hurts. The clock struck midnight, and the freezer handle slowly began to turn on its own. The rule had been broken, not by Evan, but by whatever was inside. The freezer door creaked open, not wide, just a sliver, and from the darkness inside, a thin, trembling hand slid out across the floor. Frost clung to it like white moss. The fingers twitched, reaching for Evan's shoes. Evan, it's so dark in here. The voice, Lily's voice, leaked from the crack like cold mist. Evan staggered backward until his spine struck the metal counter. His breath fogged the air in frantic bursts. That's not you, he whispered. Lily is gone. The hand stilled. Then a second voice, Miss Calder's, echoed from behind him. Don't look at it. Evan turned. She stood there with a long, rusted meat hook, fear carving deep lines in her expression. It knows your grief, she said. It uses the voice of the one you miss most. That thing in the freezer has no shape of its own. It becomes whatever will make you open the door. As if hearing her, the creature hissed, a scraping, metallic sound that froze the air itself. The freezer door swung open violently. Something crawled out. Not Lily, not even close. It was tall, too tall, and thin as broken cutlery, with joints that clicked out of place as it moved. Its face, if it had a face, was a stretched mask of ice, dripping cold tears that steamed where they hit the floor. But its voice, Evan, don't you love me? Miss Calder grabbed his arm. Run! They fled through the kitchen, but the creature's limbs snapped and twisted as it chased them, dragging itself across the tiles with a sound like knives being sharpened. The restaurant's lights burst overhead, showering them with sparks. Miss Calder shoved Evan toward the back exit. Go! The restaurant only wants one soul tonight. Don't let it be yours. But as she turned to face the creature, the thing lunged. Its limbs wrapped around her, lifting her off the ground. She screamed once, just once, before her breath crystallized into a cloud of white powder. The creature dropped her frozen body. Then it turned toward Evan, slowly, smiling with a mouth it hadn't had a moment before. He slammed the exit door and ran into the night, the creature's screams pounding at his back like fists of ice. He didn't look back.
He never worked another night shift. He never went near that street again. But sometimes, when the world falls quiet, when he stands near a refrigerator, when cold air brushes against his ear, he hears a soft, familiar whisper, "Evan, let me out."
And he remembers Miss Calder's final warning. Some doors aren't meant to keep things in, they're meant to keep them out. And the restaurant, abandoned for years now, still turns its lights on every night, still waiting for someone who misses the dead just enough to open the door. Marla Pierce, a traveling customer who wandered into a quiet little restaurant just minutes before closing time. The staff looked exhausted, the lights dimmed low, and every table sat empty. Except one, table 7. A single candle burned there, although no one sat in the chair. Marla stepped inside, brushing rainwater from her coat. The host, a nervous young man with shaking hands, greeted her. "Hello, welcome. We're, technically closing, but you can sit anywhere except table 7. Marla raised an eyebrow. "Reserved?" His jaw clenched. "Yes, for someone who always comes late." Strange, she thought, but she didn't argue. She sat at table 5, ordered a simple bowl of soup, and listened to the rain hammer against the windows. Halfway through her meal, she noticed movement. Table 7's chair had shifted, just a few inches. The candle flickered violently, though no breeze touched it. The host avoided looking at that table entirely, even when he walked past it. Marla leaned closer. The chair moved again, slowly, scraping the floor with a sound like a distant scream. She swallowed hard. "Excuse me," she called to the host. "Is someone supposed to be sitting there?" He didn't answer. He didn't even turn around. But the cook from the kitchen did, a tall, hollow-eyed man with flour on his sleeves. He said only one word, "Leave." Marla blinked. "What? Why?" He walked toward her, but before he could speak, the candle on table 7 went out, and something exhaled in the dark, a deep, rattling breath. Marla's hair lifted as though someone stood behind her. She whipped around. Nothing, but the chair at table 7 scraped, slow, steady, and turned to face her. The host began to cry silently, chest trembling. "Don't look at it," he whispered. "Just pay and go." Marla stood, shaking. "What is at that table?" The cook whispered back, voice breaking. "The customer who never left." A cold presence brushed past Marla, heading toward the exit, as if leaving the restaurant. The front door swung open on its own. Rain blew inside. Marla backed toward the counter to pay, fast, but before she reached it, she heard footsteps behind her. Wet, slow, coming from outside, yet somehow inside, too. She turned. A figure stood at table 7 now. Not fully solid, not fully real. Just an outline dripping rainwater onto the floor. It raised one frozen hand and pointed at Marla. The cook shouted, "Don't answer it!" But the thing spoke anyway, in a voice that gurgled like water drowning in a throat. "You're sitting in my section." And the restaurant lights went out. The darkness lasted only a heartbeat. When the lights blinked back on, the figure was gone. Table 7 was empty again, but the candle was burning. Marla stumbled backward, her voice cracking. "What was that?" The cook grabbed her arm firmly. "You're still alive. That means it didn't choose you. Yet." "Choose me for what?" she demanded. They didn't answer. Instead, the host placed her bill on the counter. Only the bill, but when Marla picked it up, a second slip of paper slid out from behind it. A receipt, old, yellowed, stained with water damage. Across it, smeared in dark ink, was a name, Elliot Rook, Table 7, never paid. Below the name, in handwriting that wasn't ink at all, but something thicker, darker, wetter, were fresh words. "Marla Pierce, you owe me your seat." Her blood froze. "That thing," the host whispered, "died in that chair 30 years ago. Heart stopped before he paid. He wanders every night looking for someone to replace him, someone to settle his bill. Marla dropped the slip. What does that mean for me? The cook answered softly. It means you must finish what he didn't. He handed her a tiny brass key, cold as ice. Out back is a small wooden box. Inside is the ledger of unpaid souls. If you sign your name willingly, he cannot claim you. But if you refuse, the cook swallowed, then he will return for your chair, your table, and everything that makes you alive. Marla felt the restaurant breathing around her, slow, hungry breaths. With trembling hands, she took the key and walked to the back door. Rain hissed as she stepped outside. Behind the restaurant, under a flickering bulb, sat a wooden box older than the bricks around it. She unlocked it. Inside lay a single, leather-bound ledger. Its pages trembled as though something beneath them breathed. Marla opened to the last page. Blank. A pen lay beside it, made of bone. She took a deep breath and signed her name. The moment the last stroke of her signature dried, the rain stopped. The wind stilled. The cold presence behind her vanished like smoke crushed under a boot. She stepped back inside. The cook and host stared, wide-eyed. You did it, the cook whispered. You're free. Marla nodded, shaken but alive. But when she looked down at her original restaurant bill, her receipt now had an extra line printed neatly at the bottom. Paid in full. Customer released. And table 7, for the first time in 30 years, sat completely still. The candle finally went out. Not blown, not snuffed, just finished. The restaurant closed silently, satisfied for the night, and Marla left with her life, but never again sat at a table that someone else had already claimed.
Julian arrived late on a stormy night to a restaurant he had never heard of before. The Ember Lantern. He found it strange that no cars were outside, no sign glowed over the door, and yet the front lights flickered as though expecting him. Inside, the dining room was dim, set with heavy wooden tables and candles that burned with an unnaturally tall flame. A single waiter, a stiff man with grayish skin, stood beside a podium. Welcome, Mr. Lake, the waiter said, though Julian had never given his name. Julian frowned. How did you? Your table is ready. The chef insists on serving you personally. Julian was led to a table at the center of the room. No other customers were present, yet many chairs were pulled out, as if invisible diners sat waiting to be fed. The menu contained only one item, tonight's specialty, the last dish you'll ever desire. Julian scoffed. Pretentious gimmick. But before he could complain, the kitchen door swung open with a hiss of steam. A tall figure stepped through, wearing a long chef's coat stained with dark, dried patches. His face was hidden behind a cracked porcelain mask with a perpetual smile carved into it. The chef bowed deeply and whispered, You're the first critic to return. Julian blinked. Return? I've never been here. The chef didn't answer. Instead, he placed a silver platter before Julian. Its lid trembled slightly, as if something inside moved. Julian felt his stomach tighten. What is this? The chef leaned closer, mask inches from Julian's ear. Every critic who ruins a restaurant steals a little piece of someone's life. Tonight, I'm going to return what was taken. The lid lifted. Inside was a dish that looked like roasted meat, yet the shape was unmistakably wrong, a little too human in its structure, a little too familiar in its size. Julian gagged. This is sick. I'm leaving. He stumbled up from his chair, knocking it over, but the dining room shifted. The exit door was gone. The windows were boarded from the outside. The chef stood still as a statue. You don't understand, he whispered. "You wrote a review of my old restaurant 30 years ago. It closed in a week. I lost everything, my staff, my home, my life." Julian shook his head. "That's impossible. I wasn't even born 30 years ago." The chef tilted his head. His mask cracked wider at the mouth. "You inherited your father's name and sins." The candles flared, lighting every seat in the restaurant. Julian froze. Each chair was occupied, not by living people, but by ghostly figures, hollow-eyed and whispering with burning breath, all holding menus, all pointing at Julian. The chef stepped behind Julian, placing cold hands on his shoulders. "Critics consume reputations. Tonight, the consumed will dine." The kitchen door slammed shut, and the dining room went completely dark. When the lights returned, Julian found himself slumped over the table, gasping for air. The restaurant was empty again, silent, still, and strangely warm. In front of him lay a thick parchment sheet, sealed with dark wax. At the top, written in delicate looping handwriting, were the words, "Restaurant Redemption Certificates." Establishment, the Ember Lantern. Recipient, Julian Lake. Status, spared diner. This document certifies that the above individual has faced the spirits of reputations devoured, confronted the chef of lost careers, and accepted responsibility for inherited criticism. Payment rendered. Rather than his life, the diner has offered a vow to judge food with fairness, not cruelty, to honor craft before ego, to remember that a single review can feed or starve a dream. Verdict: released from culinary retribution. Penalty? None, so long as the vow is kept. Failure to uphold this agreement will result in immediate return seating at the Ember Lantern, table of no return, seat 4. Signed, the chef who never stops cooking. Julian's hands trembled as he held the certificate. The signature at the bottom was burned into the page as though seared with a branding iron. He rushed to the door. This time, it existed. He stumbled out into the night air, clutching the certificate to his chest. Behind him, the lights of the Ember Lantern flickered once, then the building vanished completely. Julian still writes reviews today, but anyone who reads them notices a strange pattern. He never writes about a restaurant without ending with one line: "Every meal is made by a life you do not have the right to destroy." And he keeps the certificate framed on his wall, a reminder, a warning, and a promise he will never dare to break. Harlan Reed, a delivery driver with a habit of forgetting things, birthdays, deadlines, promises, but never forgetting when someone owed him something. One stormy evening, his GPS glitched and rerouted him to a restaurant he had never seen before. The Silent Spoon. It stood at the end of an empty street, glowing faintly like it had been waiting all night for someone specific. A brass plaque hung crookedly on the door. All reservations honored, no exceptions. Harlan stepped inside, shaking off rain. The dining room was spotless, elegant, and completely empty. Yet dozens of tables were set as if expecting a crowd. A single hostess, an older woman with hair pulled tightly back and eyes that didn't blink often enough, greeted him.
"Welcome, Mr. Reed. Your table is ready."
Harlan rubbed his forehead. "You know my name?"
"Of course," she said. "You made the reservation 30 years ago."
He scoffed. "Lady, I wasn't even alive 30. She held up a finger.
"Time is not always loyal."
Before he could argue, she gestured to table 9, placed exactly in the center of the restaurant. The chair was pulled out, waiting for him. A candle burned there, blue flame, unnaturally still. "I'm just here to deliver food," Harlan said.
"No,"
she replied.
"You're here to collect a debt."
She placed a menu in front of him. It contained only one item, the Forgotten Promise, served hot. Harlan rolled his eyes. What kind of joke? But the dining room temperature plummeted. Frost crawled across the silverware. The The lights flickered in a rhythm almost like a heartbeat. Then he heard it, someone breathing under the table. He jerked his legs back. "Who's there?" A voice whispered from the floorboards. "You forgot me." Harlan froze. The voice sounded eerily familiar. Someone young, someone scared. "Hello?" he shouted, backing away. The hostess shook her head slowly. "Once a promise is broken, the one abandoned must wait at the table until the one who left finally returns." "What promise?" he yelled. The blue candle flame rose, stretching tall like a twisted hand reaching upward, and then the floor beneath table 9 cracked open like an old jaw. A small figure crawled out, a boy, dripping with water, eyes pale like cloudy ice, clothes from a decade long gone. "Harlan," the boy whispered, "you said you'd come back for me." Harlan's breath caught. His vision swam. He remembered. A childhood friend, a storm, a playground near a diner, running home and leaving the frightened boy behind. A memory he'd buried so deep, he convinced himself it wasn't real. The boy stepped forward, footprints freezing into the hardwood. "You promised," the boy whispered. "You promised you'd stay." Harlan backed toward the exit, but the hostess stepped in front of him. "You can't leave," she said. "You made a reservation, and he has been waiting a very, very long time." The boy reached out. The lights died, and the restaurant swallowed their screams. When light returned, the silent spoon stood empty again. No frost, no cracks, no footprints, just one table set neatly in the center. On it lay a parchment sealed with a blue wax flame emblem. Harlan Reed's phone and delivery bag sat beside it, icy cold but otherwise untouched. The parchment read, "Promise Fulfillment Certificate. Restaurant, The Silent Spoon. Diner, Harlan Reed. Status, promise settled in full." This certifies that the above diner has confronted the memory he abandoned and acknowledged the one who waited. Actions completed by the diner. Reclaimed a forgotten promise. Faced the spirit of the forsaken child. Accepted responsibility for his absence. Offered remembrance after years of denial. Balance due, none. Outcome, the waiting soul has been released from its table. Note, those who forget their promises will someday be reminded. Those who break them will eventually return, even if they do not remember making them. Signed, the hostess of the Silent Spoon, keeper of unfinished bonds. Anyone who later drove past that empty street swore they saw a faint blue candle burning through the window for just a second before the restaurant blinked out of sight entirely. And though no trace of Harlan Reed was ever found, the certificate remained, folded neatly on table 9.